Okay. Um, People joining is starting to slow down, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm Julia Durnell. I am on the Alumni Association Board of Directors, and I currently chair the Redbird Engagement and Development Committee. Welcome to the table talk tonight, and with the topic of what does diversity, equity, inclusion have to do with sustainability? We have some folks on here who will be helping us out this evening. Matthew really is another Alumni Association Board of Directors member and also sits on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee for the board. And Matthew will be monitoring all questions throughout this webinar and will be presenting them to Elisabeth at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to use that Q&A option in this webinar. And I'll go ahead and get started with introducing Elisabeth. So Elisabeth Reed has served as the director of the Illinois State University Office of Sustainability for the last 4 years. During this time, she led the university to develop its first sustainability strategic plan, integrated zero waste practices into campus operations, and created innovative programming with students, faculty, staff, and community members. Prior to this position, Reed taught in the fashion design and merchandising program at ISU, connecting sustainability and environmental social justice issues into textiles and product development courses, while also developing the award-winning Fix It Friday program. Reed has a master's degree in fashion design from the Savannah College of Art and Design and an undergraduate degree in architecture from the University of Cincinnati. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Elisabeth this evening.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I am excited to talk about this particular topic with you tonight. What does diversity, equity, and inclusion have to do with sustainability? So let's go ahead and start and dive into this further. I'm going to start with some definitions first. So a little bit of a class here at the beginning. I just want to make sure that we all have a full understanding of these different terms that we'll be using tonight. And we'll start with just defining the term sustainability. So when I'm in a class, oftentimes I will ask the students, which one of these different terms that you think of with sustainability, and most everyone always answers environmental. Because I think, when you think of sustainability, you think of, planting trees or recycling, doing a cleanup effort, those types of things. But really, sustainability is so much more than that. It includes all three of these pillars. So the environmental being one of them, but also the social component of that, the idea that, what we do to the earth, we do to each other as well, and thinking about those future generations. And then the economic part of that as well, that, we have to think about the stability and the growth from now and into the future. If something is outrageously expensive to build or maintain, then that isn't sustainable either. So taking all of those three, they really are interconnected and help us understand what sustainability is. There really are so many definitions of sustainability. You can Google them, and there's so many that come up. Look it up in the dictionary. But in order for us to think about what sustainability means at ISU, we really liked this kind of simple graphic to help us create our own definition. So this is how we have defined sustainability at ISU. This definition took us a little while to come up with. We had a group that helped build our sustainability strategic plan, also write this definition. So I'll just read this along with you here. Sustainability is defined as a practice in which we consider the implications of our individual and collective actions. So the things that we think about individually on campus, but also as a university as a whole. The interconnectivity among people and ecosystems coexisting within communities and across the globe. Again, some of those choices maybe that we make here at ISU, how does that impact people across the other side of the world? And then a vision for an equitable and thriving planet for generations to come. So this definition really helped to, kind of give us a baseline and helped us to write our sustainability strategic plan a couple years ago. The strategic plan is located on our website, so you feel free to look into that further later. But I wanted to highlight specifically for tonight, within our strategic plan, one of the goals that I think is relevant. There are goals in so many different areas: energy, academics, the natural environment, built environment, materials and waste management, food and events. But this goal is in engagement and partnerships. And so again, I will read that along with you here too. So this goal is as goal C here: develop and implement a social and environmental justice narrative to create and sustain a campus culture that values inclusive sustainability. So that goal is kind of, a larger big picture type of goal. And then underneath it here are our action items, which really, they're the how-to. How are we going to get to this? How are we going to do this goal? So we can accomplish this goal by, number one, demonstrating an expanded definition of sustainability. So it's more than just planting trees and recycling and that type of thing, but that values environmental stewardship, humanity, diversity, and inclusion, wellness, and social justice. Another way we can do that is pursue collaborations and strengthen partnerships with centers, campus community, and global partners to expand opportunities and make existing sustainability programs more inclusive and culturally resonant. We can also increase participation from underrepresented campus groups and sustainability grant opportunities and student organizations to reflect the diversity of the student body and the surrounding community. And we can also assemble a team to develop university-wide standards for targeted environmentally preferred and fair trade vendors. And I'm going to get into some of those, again, those definitions and some of these terms in a little bit here too. Our sustainability strategic plan is actively in progress right now. We are really working hard to try to accomplish many of these goals that are in there right now. So let's look specifically at that term environmental justice that was in there too. Continuing on kind of some of these definitions, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. So environmental justice is defined as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal of environmental justice will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. So you see those up in the top right corner. I know it's super tiny. I'm just going to share with you what that is. But this is the 17 principles of environmental justice that were actually adopted in 1991. And since then, these principles have really served as kind of this defining document for environmental justice. So I'll give you an example of a couple of these principles. One of them being environmental justice demands that public policy be based on mutual respect and justice for all peoples, free from any form of discrimination or bias. Environmental justice calls for the education of present and future generations, which emphasizes social and environmental issues based on our experience and an appreciation of our diverse cultural perspectives. Environmental justice affirms the right of all workers to a safe and healthy work environment without being forced to choose between an unsafe livelihood and unemployment. So even though this was written over 30 years ago, these principles are just as important today, especially as we continue to see environmental racism across our country and around the world. And so again, let's define this one last term here. The one I just used, environmental racism, often refers to the excessive impact that environmental hazards, such as plastic pollution, have on Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So I want to give you an example of this to kind of give you some context. This is a map here of the Mississippi River, and along the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is this kind of 85-mile long, really dense concentration of about 150 fossil fuel and petrochemical plants. And it's recognized as one of the most polluted places in America and received the name Cancer Alley because people living in this area are 50 times more likely to get cancer than the average American. These toxic facilities are also in areas with the highest percentages of people of color and low-income residents. So if you're not familiar, petrochemical facilities produce plastics. Plastic is the largest category of petrochemicals, but they also make various rubbers, solvents, paints, epoxy. They also make aromatics, which are used to make polystyrene, which is, is styrofoam, and also synthetic fibers that we find in all kinds of textiles, such as polyester, nylon, and spandex. The pollution in this whole industrial corridor exacerbates health problems like asthma. And among people of color, incidences of things like stomach cancer, diabetes, and heart disease are significantly higher than in the United States as a whole. And in 2020, Cancer Alley became known as Coronavirus Alley after residents began to disproportionately die from COVID-19. St. John the Baptist, a community located in Cancer Alley, had the nation's largest, the highest per capita COVID-19 death rate in April 2020. You remember that was right when everything began. And in the last couple of years, there has been a proposal for yet another new, huge, gigantic plastics complex called the Sunshine Project, which would consist of 14 separate plants across about 2,300 acres of land. And if this is approved, it will roughly double the annual amount of toxic emissions in this area. It will also become the world's largest production facility for plastics and the other materials that are used for the production of plastics. So all really the members of this community and surrounding areas can do is protest and march to try to have their voices heard. They are not at the table otherwise. These factories exist to continue to exist and do business as usual without diverse or certainly any local voices that are part of the conversation. Now, thinking about this in more of a global context, in 2013, the Rana Plaza that you see here collapsed, killing over 1,100 people. This was a garment factory in Bangladesh, making clothing for brands at Walmart, Zara, The Children's Place, definitely ones that we are familiar with. But out of that tragedy came a movement, just like the marching and protesting in Cancer Alley. An organization called Fashion Revolution came about, where they went all over, really the world, to take photographs and hold the garment industry more accountable and make it more transparent. So they took photos of hundreds of people who make our clothes, our shoes, bags, all kinds of products, and it gave both a face and a voice to those that didn't have one otherwise. And it would definitely ones that wouldn't have a choice in speaking up. It gave them representation that these are the people working in factories, making our clothing and our bags and shoes and all kinds of other products. So how does this translate to business then? So taking some of these tragedies or holding some of these companies accountable, how can business make sure that those types of things never happen again? Or having some of those diverse voices at the table in places like Cancer Alley. So most companies, large companies we're seeing today, are issuing what is called an ESG report, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. And this diagram here on the left does, I think, a good job of outlining what is included in each of these categories. This was maybe you would have heard it formerly called CSR, or corporate social responsibility, but now the focus is really on ESG as more of a holistic approach. So the E in ESG is the environmental pillar. This includes things like the energy your company takes in, the waste it discharges, the resources it needs, carbon emissions. Every company uses energy and resources, so every company affects and is affected by the environment. So recognizing that and reporting on those things. The S is the social pillar, which addresses relationships that your company has. Obviously, the DEI policies and the practices your company has, including like labor relations, maybe board diversity and inclusion, labor laws. This S component here is really, where we see a lot of the DEI policies, as I said, but diversity and inclusion are really crucial components here because they encompass diverse perspectives, experiences, backgrounds, and decision-making, problem solving, and all of those important decision-making processes. And then G is governance. And this is really the internal system of practices, controls, regulations, procedures your company adopts in order to govern itself. This includes transparency and all kinds of other, business ethics, that type of thing. And then, thinking about that governance piece to it, the leadership is really important here. The leadership matters in integrating and balancing all three of these pillars and making each of them a priority within your organization. And we might also hear ESG another way. We might hear this as the 3 Ps or the triple bottom line, which include people, planet, profit. It's kind of more of a nickname sort of thing for ESG, I guess, or a more casual way of saying it. But you can see how similar these graphics are. I just wanted to make sure you saw both of these, as both of those terms are used throughout the industry. So I would be remiss to not share this. Many of the goals within these ESG reports, I'm going to show you a couple examples of those, are guided by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which you can see here. And you can see when you're just looking at the kind of the topics for each of these goals, how they really relate and intersect with each other, building upon one another and connecting in so many ways. I'll point out just a few, like good health and well-being, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, which is notoriously an environmental justice issue, reduced inequalities. All of those are really interconnected with sustainability, including, DEI. So the SDGs, what we call them for short, Sustainable Development Goals, are also what guided us here at ISU on the development of our sustainability strategic plan. They really do provide a roadmap for many companies and organizations across the world that are really doing this work and wanting to include these goals within that. So before we dive into some examples, I just want to reiterate here a little bit that diversity, equity, inclusion really go hand in hand with sustainability. They are one and the same. And when we integrate DEI into our business model and practices, we can look at this more holistically and truly come out stronger. People are not just marching or protesting, but they have that seat at the table, that all voices and those different perspectives are heard. Groups, and this one bullet point that I have here, the groups that are disproportionately affected by environmental degradation and climate change have unique insights and a vested interest in sustainable solutions. You think about this as their community, their home, their family has maybe lived here for ages. They want to protect it and make it a safe and healthy place to raise their families and have good jobs and, stay there for many, many years. Having more voices at the table as well, it fosters innovation and creativity. There are really challenging, complex challenges within sustainability. And so we really need that innovation and creativity. And so there's just so many benefits of having all of these different voices and perspectives as part of our problem solving and part of our organizations and companies. So let's see some of this in action. I wanted to provide a couple examples for you here. So this is the ESG kind of section of Apple's website. So I just screenshotted here so you could kind of see this, what some of the text has here. So I'll just read along here with you what's stated. From Apple CEO Tim Cook, we believe that business at its best serves the public good, empowers people around the world, and binds us together as never before. Another, just kind of, if you would scroll down on their website here, I copied this text too. We are committed to demonstrating that business can and should be a force for good. Achieving that takes innovation, collaboration, and a focus on serving others. It also means leading with our values in the technology we make, the way we make it, and how we treat people and the planet we share. We're always looking to leave the world better than we found it and to create powerful tools that empower others to do the same. So that's on their main page, but then you can actually go into their ESG report. And again, I've just screenshotted a few of them here for you. It's an 85-page document, so you're more than welcome to go onto their website and dive into that further. But I just wanted to kind of share some of their report highlights. And you can see it might be kind of small, so I'll read out some of those. But some of their report highlights include, things such as carbon neutral for corporate emissions. And they want to reduce their overall emissions by 40%. And then more than doubled renewable energy in our supply chain. But then they're also continuing to maintain pay equity and increase representation in leadership. And it continues. There's, it's 85 pages. These are just some of the highlights here. But we can see more initiatives here in regards to their supply chain, accessibility, racial justice, giving back to local communities and HBCUs. So they have a variety of different initiatives that they're working on, but also this is all included in their ESG report. And it's public knowledge for everybody to be able to read and go through. To make it more give you a local example, this is State Farm's ESG report that was released in 2022. I think they have one of the best taglines, good neighbors, better world. And you can see some of their highlighted goals here is enabling our workforce to power the future, building environmentally sustainable and resilient futures. State Farm certainly has a stake in that game, trying to ensure all of these different places. And so how is that going to work if some of these places are not existent anymore? And then, some of the goals over to the left here, building, like I said, building environmentally sustainable, resilient futures, but they also have goals within championing diversity and inclusion as well. So we have to be realistic, though, that a company can do good things for people and planet, but it also has to be good for business, right? Like there has to be that profit part of it. And there are so many examples of this where it's shown that it's really clear that having strong ESG reports is these companies are doing very well, whether that be profits, retention rates of employees, new customers, more investments into their company itself. People want to invest in companies that are doing good. So it's not only smart to invest to build an ESG report itself, but also to maybe invest in those companies that are doing so well. So again, I'm just going to read some of these experts from a few of the articles that I just screenshotted and shared here. So at the top here, stock funds have found more success when attached to companies with good scores in environmental, social, and governance. It has, new data from the research and sustainability ESG book has shown this trend developing over the past 5 years. Essentially, investments in companies with good ESG performance have generally yielded higher returns than the average within their broader market. A couple of these other ones that I've just kind of circled here. Why is ESG investing important? This part of it, the article, as such, investors are now looking to back companies that are taking climate change seriously and undergoing the necessary steps to reduce their carbon footprint. And then in the Harvard Business Review, it's a professor who had really studied all these different companies and field studies, and their collective research points to the need for a new management paradigm for corporate leaders, one in which ESG considerations are embedded in both strategy and operations. So it's not just this separate thing, you're checking off the box, and here's our ESG report, but it's really something that is truly embedded in part of the company itself. And for this reason, there are thousands of jobs in ESG, which is exciting to see. These are reporting, popping up every day. There are entry-level ones for possibly our students to take on after they graduate, internship positions and entry-level ones, but also upper management all the way to senior level positions. I'm sharing some of the ones that I just grabbed off of LinkedIn and other places earlier today, so they'd be somewhat current. And so with companies too that you might recognize, obviously you can see Saks Fifth Avenue, Morgan Stanley, the Rivian one is in the middle. It's hard to see their logo. Amazon, Post, and Bank of America are all here. But with all of that in mind too, one of the things we as consumers, but also maybe those as investors or those in business really need to be made aware of is something called greenwashing. So greenwashing is, if you're not familiar, is basically a false or misleading, kind of a half truth, not completely honest set of kind of claims that might be made by the company about their positive impact that their organization or the product has on the environment. So I have a few examples here, and I'm not calling any of these companies out. They might have amazing ESG reports, but I wanted to share some of these as far as some of the buzzwords that you hear and try to be kind of on the lookout for. Natural being one of them, also eco or green. What does eco really mean? What does green mean? What does natural mean? There has to be some kind of substance behind that. And the ESG report can really hold these companies accountable. And you can't really fake it in that way. Some of the examples I have on here, like H&M has this conscious collection. And so the little tag that's next to that is kind of making fun of that in some way with greenwashing instructions, exaggerate positive contributions to ethical and sustainable fashion, use manipulative and misleading terminology and imagery, and distract from the ongoing mass production of fast fashion products. Oftentimes you will see also some companies on their website, they will say, we follow local labor laws. Well, depending on where their products are being made, the labor laws may be non-existent or not anything up to what we would consider as appropriate labor laws. So one way to know that a company is not greenwashing is that if they have received one or more of these certifications. There's a lot of them there. But they're all very rigorous processes that require companies to have ongoing audits and checks that the companies have to follow. And that they are taking this seriously if they have gone through this process. So some that I just want to point out here that we'll look at a little bit closer are fair trade and B Corporation. We'll look at those in a second here, but some of the other ones, 1% for the planet is if they're doing that, Okotex and within textiles or Blue Sign approved are always good to see. The Rainforest Alliance on different food products. If a building has it's LEED certified, then they took all kinds of extra steps to make sure that what they were putting into that building was more sustainable products. So let's look at fair trade a little bit first. With fair trade, we often think of like coffee or chocolate, as you see here, but fair trade has expanded so amazingly in the last 5 to 8 years, really, into so many other markets, and it's really exciting to see. So we see fair trade as ingredients, but also fair trade cotton. It's been in agriculture for a while now, but now into more textiles, which is interesting. And then fair trade sewing and fair trade factory itself. And we're starting to see things like fair trade denim and other clothing items sold at more mainstream retailers, not just like at a specific fair trade store. So you can find items like this in Target, Athleta, Madewell, J.Crew. There's several others that are examples as well. So if these were certified in a fair trade factory, then all of those different components in regards to sustainability are really being considered and monitored. And we can trust that this factory the people working there are paid a living wage. They're working in safe working conditions. They have healthcare, possibly have a place for their children to go as well. So we can really have faith that it's not something like we saw with Rana Plaza. And bring it back to ISU a little bit here for a second. Fair trade is something that we want to see more of here on campus with some of our purchases across the university. You can become a fair trade university, which includes committing to several different tasks, including some that we already do. I have a picture on here of a group that went to Costa Rica to visit fair trade farms as part of a course. So including fair trade in the curriculum is one of the boxes we have to check to be a fair trade university. So we're already doing that. And some others that we would just need to do are including more fair trade products into our bookstore, into our campus outlets, our dining centers. So we're actively working on that. Again, that's part of our sustainability strategic plan as well within those goals I mentioned earlier. We trust the fair trade certification, and we really want to provide this as an example for our students while they're here, something to learn from. It's not, they're not just getting maybe a cup of coffee at the dining center, but they are learning about fair trade as well, and hopefully incorporating some of those habits into their lifestyle, which they can take when they leave. Another one you can really trust is a B Corporation, also a very rigorous process to be certified in and meets really high standards in the social and environmental performance, transparency, accountability. This banner here does a really good job explaining what a B Corp is. So I'll just read some of it here. We envision a global economy that uses business as a force for good. The economy is comprised of a new type of corporation, the B Corporation, which is purpose-driven and creates benefit for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. They believe, that the emerging economy is one we must be the change we seek. Business ought to be conducted as if people and place mattered. So really incredible kind of goals. And there are lots of different companies that have gone through this certification as well. Oops. Including all the ones that you see here. And just like fair trade, again, this is a really rigorous certification process. They have this B impact assessment kind of test that they have to take, and they have to score an 80 or higher. Need to be fully transparent with everything they do, have a really strong and public ESG report, continuously audited and reviewed to make sure they are committed to these practices. It's not something that just after the report is submitted, they're done, but they're continuing to always make improvement and act on the commitments that they put forth. So I want to kind of sort of end here. I'm not ending completely, but ending some of these topics, I guess, with a company that has been doing it right ever since they started. They've been doing it right the whole time, long before there were terms like DEI or CSR or ESG or the triple bottom line or any of those things, and that is Patagonia. They have been fully transparent with how they do business, where they do business, and the way that impacts the people and planet as well. Their tagline is, "We're in business to save our home planet," so you can't really get more transparent than that. They have been a model and have written books on this topic in regards to, again, ESG before it was ever ESG. The book on the left, Let My People Go Surfing, came out in 2005. It was really revolutionary at the time. And it serves as a business model for kind of business for good. And incorporating all those 3 Ps. The title, Let My People Go Surfing, really means exactly that at Patagonia, if the surf's up, which they're located in Ventura, so right down the road, if the surf's up, then let your employees go surfing that morning, and they will return happy and more productive employees. So it's a metaphor for lots of different things that we're starting to see in so many more businesses, but was really revolutionary at the time. And obviously they have proven to be very successful as well. So one revolutionary kind of memorable act that maybe you might remember in 2011, that they ran this ad in the New York Times on Black Friday to not buy this jacket, kind of the reverse of anything you would think about in marketing or business. They have been very careful with the growth of their company and keeping with and thinking about the impact. They are thinking about those overcrowded factories of people making the clothes and the carbon footprint and emissions of making this jacket. So they're thinking of this in a really global and conscientious context. And they're advertising that the greenest product is the one that already exists. So they're making products that are supposed to last a lifetime. They have repair opportunities for you so that you repair it and continue to wear it, and you don't need to continue to buy new. It's really revolutionary in so many ways. And you might have seen of this in the news as well. It was probably a year or so ago that Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, has proven the point that you can use business for good and be very, very successful. And he's continuing to do that in retirement. Sold the company, but to a designated trust company valued at $3 billion. So he sold that to this designated trust that ensures all of its profits, some of it up to $100 million a year, are going to projects that combat climate change and protect the environment. So it's really remarkable. I want to bring it back to ISU again here to just kind of to share this picture. This is, I brought a group of students 2 different times to the headquarters of Patagonia. These are the companies that really are leading the way, that need to lead the way. And so I want to expose our students to what they're doing, how they are doing. And so we need to follow in their footsteps. And I hope our students are, when we teach them about these companies, then they are going off into the world and expecting these types of things and hoping, to make change in the companies and places that they're working as well. After we visited with Patagonia and did a whole tour, and it was just as amazing as we would have expected, they took us surfing. So it was a pretty great experience for our students, for sure. We do not have at ISU an ESG report. We do it a little bit different at universities, but I wanted to share kind of how we do some reporting. We report to ASHE, which stands for the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Education. And they have a tracking system here, the STARS that you see, tracking, assessment, and rating system. And there are different levels. Currently, ISU has not reported in almost 4.5 years. We were wanting to create our strategic plan, act on some of those goals, and then start reporting. So we will be reporting or submitting our report to STARS this fall. And the old rating of a bronze, we are hoping to for sure get up to silver in that way. So all of the goals that we wrote in the strategic plan really were in line with the STARS goals as well, so that we can report on them fairly, seamlessly. And this is also a little plug for some of the things that we're doing here that contribute to the goals in our strategic plan. So acting on some of those different action items that we have and hopefully increase our rating in STARS. 2 of those being the Share Shop and Fix It Friday. The Share Shop is a free resource store located in our office. And again, kind of going back to that Patagonia mission of the most sustainable thing or item is the one you already have in your closet. So we really are trying to educate our campus that shopping secondhand is one of the most sustainable things you can do. And to not only do that, but also repair your clothing as well. So we have Fix It Friday, which offers free repairs and mending every Friday. It's right across from the Share Shop too. So students can shop at the Share Shop, find something, if a pair of pants or something is a little too long, they can get it hemmed there. The store runs on donations. So we accept donations every day during regular business hours all year long. And then the shop is open Monday, Wednesday, Friday to students to come in. We don't just take clothing items like you see in this picture here. We also have another section of this that you can't quite see that has household items and things like bedding and dishes and sheets, towels, all kinds of things like that. Decorations, a million different things that we have. And then I also wanted to share this program, kind of goes along that same mission, especially as we approach move out. We have had a program at ISU for almost 30 years now called Pass It On, where we would collect donations inside the residence halls. and give them to local community organizations. In the last couple years, those community organizations came a little overloaded with all of them, and so we are taking them as part of the share shop, but also part of a program that we issued them out to campus or to students in the fall. So over the summer, we organize all of these crazy donations that we get, keeping them out of landfill, and then we put them out onto the lawn of our office and have like this most crazy kind of like a Black Friday event, and everything is put out for free, and students can take and as much as they would like. It has clothing, again, bedding, small furniture items, all kinds of books and school supplies, and anything you can imagine. Again, keeping it all out of landfill, creating that culture of sustainability at ISU, thinking about, integrating that right when they get to campus, about the idea of reuse and repair, and being responsible, stewards to all of this. So finally, I just want to share this last slide of just ways that you might want to get involved. You can check out our website that has so much more about our sustainability strategic plan, our some of the goals within that, all of the different activities and events that we have and initiatives. You can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you are so inclined, we are always accepting donations to the Share Shop. Specifically, our students really, really love the any Redbird apparel. So if you have surplus or gently used Redbird apparel, we would gladly take that, and we'll save that specifically for some of the preview students coming this summer and the incoming students in the fall as well. We're also actively seeking volunteers for that Pass It On project that I just shared. And so if you are in town and available, feel free to sign up for a shift to just help collect those donations as well. And I think that's all I have. A happy Earth Day to everyone. I'm happy to take any questions now.
Thank you so much for this. I told myself I would write down a few questions if I had them, and during your talk, I filled half of a notebook. So, thank you for this. Yes, the Q&A is launched if folks want to use it. I have a few that I'm going to talk through, and then a few that I'd like to ask you as well.
Sure.
But I thought this first one was interesting. There's a question just noticing that the identities of your trip to the Patagonia looked
Yes.
predominantly female.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's interesting about that I wanted to ask about is if you notice any diversity among folks being called or doing this work. I think we notice sometimes in DEI work broadly that the folks feel like they're called to this work are coming to it for very personal
Mm-hmm.
reasons. So it tends to be, a lot of marginalized folks doing the work,
Yes.
but is that willingness to engage with privilege in the work there? I'm
Right.
wondering if you see that type of comparison in this type of field.
Yes, absolutely. The space is very white and very female, and this is something that we see a lot in we're trying to address in different conferences that I attend, and you're looking around the room, and that's what it really looks like. This was one of the reasons why we wanted to be really intentional with putting this in our sustainability strategic plan in ways that we can incorporate, and even webinars like this that help to connect the two, so that I think, it's not just this tree hugger person over here that's the
Mhm.
sustainability person, but is actually very intimately connected with racial and social justice issues. And so if we can try to build those connections and get people, our Earth Day breakfast was a real effort to try to do that as well, to try to bring in different perspectives and expose the campus community and the community to the broader view of sustainability. That picture from Patagonia, I will say, was all fashion students, which is also a space that should be, much more diverse as well, because there's all kinds of bodies and individuals that they will be dressing. And that's something I know that's really involved in the curriculum as well. But yes, it's definitely a problem in many ways, and it's something that I really, like I said, trying to put it in the strategic plan, having more events like this, I think are the way forward for sure.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask too, I really appreciate that you brought up the greenwashing
Mhm.
concept. I think that was something that, especially my um age group, 30s to 40s, that really is when that greenwashing marketing really started to peak. And I think because of that, we felt a lot of individual responsibility
Mhm.
to respond to really deep structural issues. Now, I think it's interesting right now, and I'm wondering how, if you see this in your work, that individual, that recognizing that this is much more systemic than just individual is very powerful, but also there's a little bit of feeling like you're powerless then.
Mhm.
It can feel like you can feel the despair about you as a person being able to make a difference in your work. And also the feeling of, is it too late
Mhm.
to do any of this work, whether it be sustainability, DEI? People see systemic problems and feel, how can I, as one person, really engage with this work? I'm wondering if you could respond to that a bit. Is just
Yeah,
that type of despair about recognizing this is so much bigger than just me.
right. Yeah, you can definitely feel that way. I think because we live in such a capitalist, a society that we feel like we, first of all, to answer different parts of your question, I think we feel like we can buy our way out of it. Like, I'm going to get all this eco stuff and I'm going to have this really green kitchen at home and reuse all these things. But then there's always something more. There's always something better, that's out there. So, yeah, we can't buy our way out of it. Um, and so that's, yeah, it does put that on the individual person. It kind of goes back though to that Patagonia idea is the best products you have are the ones you already have, you don't need to buy all these new things. But we are so trained in that way. But I will say, as far as hope and thinking about the future and taking the kind of the weight off of our individual shoulders is truly some of this work that's being done in ESG, that so many of these companies are putting out these reports and they have to do it for their, if it's their shareholders that are driving it, their stock prices, whatever it might be, so be it. If that's how if that's how it's working. And then we as a collective, rather than just individuals, can certainly vote with our dollars and support the products and the companies that are taking the steps that are, certified fair trade or B Corporation, and making those successful and the other ones not as much. And so then maybe they have to pay attention and start doing the work as well.
Thank you for that. I think there's a question in the chat asking about why disposable plates, cups, different things like that were allowed on campus for long as they were. I wanted to ask that, but also think that makes me think about a question a little bit broadly about some of this work can seem like add-ons to businesses
Mhm.
rather than their root foundation. And I
Mhm.
think you shared some really wonderful places that aren't seeing this as in addition to their work, but really the foundation of their work.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to ask that specific one about the Watterson piece, but wondering if that type of shift about thinking about this as an add-on to more foundational, if that's a shift that you felt on campus in the time in your work.
Yeah, I think, it really does go back to leadership in so many ways, as far as, if it's both kind of bottom up and top down at the same time. So if you have those leaders that are really uh, requiring it, demanding it, expecting it in these different spaces, then it can definitely move the needle. So some of these companies that might just have, yeah, this environmental team and they're doing this ESG report, but it's not really fully integrated into what they're doing, it's not going to be successful. But if the president of the company, the chairman of the board or whoever it might be, is the one really trying to lead that charge, share that information, and challenge the company to rise to that occasion, then that's where we're going to really see that change and walking the talk themselves as well. Um, so and it's across campus. I have amazing campus partners that are willing to change some of their basic operations that they might, have done for a long time. And so that can be challenging, but our office in many ways is here to try to remove some of those barriers and make it a little bit more easier for those groups. So I do see that consistently across ISU. In regards to Watterson, I got this question. I'm assuming the person that maybe asked this was here during COVID. So Watterson historically, pre-COVID, has almost been zero waste. It was all reusable. I mean, from all the time that I was teaching here, well before I started in this position, everything was on reusables. We've been composting behind the scenes for longer than many other universities were doing so as well. But a lot of that, like the composting piece, was behind the scenes, so you don't really see it. But then the reusables are just something that was just it was part of the dining centers. And so then during COVID, we ran into a major issue with not having enough dishwasher staff. And so, dining used plates that they already had in stock from other events. So at least they weren't purchasing new, but they were plastic for a good long time. There's a lot of different things for like university events and ones that were, like I said, were already in. The other component to that was the supply chain as well. So even eventually when we were able to transition to compostable plates there, it took a very long time, and then they wouldn't be arriving in time, or we'd have the compostable plates, but not compostable bowls or whatever else. So there were all kinds of, issues that came about during that time. But since then, and this last year and this year, we are fully back to reusables at our dining centers. And in fact, now they've even eliminated the cup that is there. That was a non-compostable, landfill Coke cup that is now, you can bring your own cup. And yeah, the students seem to like that because they can fill up a giant, bottle of whatever they want. Or, a coffee mug or things like that, travel coffee mug and that type of thing. So that was something that broke my heart during the time of that COVID, but it was something that was unfortunately just so many kind of issues that were happening. It was hard to avoid.
Thank you for that, though. Our last question for the night, I wanted to ask you, it's a little bit broad, but I wanted to see in your work, how do you bring people into this work enthusiastically? I think for us in DEI, sustainability, the things that don't work, right, are things like shame or getting really, really mad when folks, quote unquote, do it the wrong way. I think we come to this work very personally, which means we have very real reactions when folks are not doing it the way that we think, quote unquote, are the right way. I think you've done a beautiful job about talking about how collective this work is. But for folks who are wanting to start with this work and not quite sure where to do it, how do you welcome them in?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, here for our office, I'm really lucky. I never have to put out a job posting or anything, unless it's something very specific, like for a social media person or something. But otherwise, I have emails all the time of students that want to work at our office and want to get involved in somehow. So that, that kind of fills my cup in many ways, that there are so many students that are really enthusiastic about it on their own and want to help and want to be a part of the office. And they are a huge help on campus for us, especially during Earth Month when we have so many different activities. They have been all over to some local schools and different presentations that they have given. And so that, like I said, I'm really lucky in that way. But, yeah, it can get really kind of discouraging to be working on something and and then you leave the office and see, I don't know, litter or whatever, and it's just like, are we making a difference? Are we doing something? But I think, the more and more conversations like this, or, you know, the town of Normal is working on their sustainability strategic plan. And so there's things like that that kind of give you hope that there are more of you that out there than you know, just yourself that are part of this. And we're all going to go about it in a different way. We're all going to have our own perspectives of what we're passionate about. Or I mean, my background is within fashion, so I really think about the people behind the clothing and the products, and the environmental impact of that as well. But others might be more interested in renewable energy, or, and not that I'm not, but those, you know, there's certain topics that people are more vested in and passionate about. Um, and so I think if you can find that and just channel it and go in with what you know and what you're knowledgeable about, I think we're all going to be successful in that way, because we can all kind of go in it with our own passions and knowledge, um, and balance each other out in that way too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us tonight, not only for our talk, but for your work as a whole. It really is an honor to be able to do this work with folks just like you. So thank
Thank
you.
you so much. It was an honor to be here tonight. Thank you for having me, and happy Earth Day, everyone.
Earth Day. For everyone who joined us, thank you. On behalf of both Red and the DEI work, we love conversations with you and work just like this. So thank you for not only being here for 2 nights, but we look forward to seeing you in our next one. That's it for now, but we'll see you next time.